Hello, today I'm here with author Lynn Hoerauf to discuss her new book out now, Miss Snickers. Hi Lynn, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great, Derek. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So, Miss Snickers is out now. That must feel incredible. I know you put a lot of hard work into this, and I think you said you've been working on this for 8.5 years.
Yes, I have.
Awesome.
So it
Yes.
does feel great to see the final, or at least, the copy come out. Yeah.
Yes, it's so exciting. Yes, so congratulations. I mean, 8.5 years is a long time to work on any project, especially when writing a novel. So this is wonderful for you.
Thank you.
My first question for you is, tell me a bit about your kind of pre-writing process with this. I know in your acknowledgments you mentioned that you had a conversation with your dad when you were 18, and he said, "So when are you going to write that book already?"
Right, right. Well, when he said that, I actually said, I think I just said stunned, actually. I don't even know that. I don't even think I answered, Derek. I just remember him saying that. And that was just a moment of, wow, really? I don't know. But I mean, he knew that I liked to write. I would write a lot of letters to people and I would write poetry and I enjoyed writing. And people would say to me, there's something about your writing. Okay. So that felt good and stuff, but I never thought of, in a book. But then right around when I was 30-ish, I started writing like a nonfiction, and I worked on that for a while, and then kind of never really finished that. And then 8.5 years ago, I'm thinking, gosh, I'd kind of like to write a humorous book, and so that was the beginning. It's almost like it happened in a second. All of a sudden, I want to do this. How do I do it? And then that's how it started.
Yeah, so with the early stages of development for Miss Snickers, so the character Sydney Murphy is the character who is nicknamed Miss Snickers by the class that she substitutes for because she basically bribes the kids to do what they're supposed to do in the classroom with Snickers candy bars, thus earning her the nickname Miss Snickers. So what are some of the early stages of character development, especially for Sydney, and how she came together?
Well, I was taking a writing class to find out how to create a fiction novel, and the instructor said to write 3 paragraphs, a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I was like, well, I only have one idea. And she said, well, now's the time, make it, now's the time to put it together. So okay, but that moment was, okay, this is my idea. How do I build a backstory? Who is my person that does this main thing I had in mind? And building a backstory is how, in a way, and her character started to develop. So how does the person get to this point? What does she look like? What is her backstory to get to the backstory? And so I guess it's just something that generated as the storyline started to develop.
Yes, so I know with any writers, people out there who are writers, myself included, we know there are challenges, there's ups and downs. It's a whole journey to write a novel. Writing is one of the most difficult things in the world to do, especially when you are working full time and have a lot of other obligations in life. So, what were some of the challenges that you faced off and on throughout the 8.5 year process of writing this book?
Well, that is a great question and great point, Derek. I'll say the blank sheet of paper. Facing that blank sheet of paper when I'm sitting to type or I'm starting to write. I like to write longhand before I put it in the computer.
Mhm.
And that was a moment of something. I don't know what quite, but it was a moment of, I don't know if intimidation or what's next, but there's some kind of process that happens when you're sitting there and ideas have not yet formed into ink or letters on a page. The other big one, and I still struggle in various ways, but not to the same degree, at least that I'm aware of at this point, but in the very beginning, it was so, getting any kind of critique was so, not that I wasn't open to critique, I think I was, but it was so scary to just put it out there. And over time, I learned to, kind of do this, accept the critique, and then decide, is that my framework? Is that how I as a writer want to go forward? Or was that the giver of the critiques framework and maybe how they would go forward with it for themselves? So it's a learning to, figure that out. So I think one of the biggest things would be putting something out there and thinking, is that good enough to read? Is that interesting enough? Is that funny enough? Is that offer? And so those would be probably the biggest challenges, is to face this, I don't know, whatever that is when you put something out there in the world and wondering what's going to come back.
Yeah, it's a way of being vulnerable, opening yourself up like that, especially with a creative project. That's a labor of love. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's well said.
So yeah, earlier on the first part of your answer, you mentioned, the blank page and bringing the ideas to the written word. So there's a lot of ways that people approach novel writing. Some people storyboard out the beginning to the end. Others just write as they go. It sounds like you basically wrote this, the story developed as you wrote it. Am I correct? Or
It's kind of both and, because
okay.
the teacher that I worked with, when she said to write the 3 paragraphs, the next assignment was, now make 20 sentences or small paragraphs out of those 3 paragraphs. So it was kind of like writing an outline, right? Of, okay, this is going to happen, this is going to, and I even took note cards and had the ideas, and I put them in an order. And what I found was I started writing and typing and everything, and then there was a point I was stuck. And so I went back to my outline and I thought, where did I think I was going to go with this, right? And I found, which I was sort of surprised, was I had kind of been following it without noticing that I was actually, I wasn't going back and forth following it. But when I got to see where I thought I was going to go with it, seeing the outline helped me to springboard into a continuation. And I found it to be very valuable, that I needed some, that kind of that guide out there a little bit. But I got to tell you, as it was happening, there were times I just saw it happening in my head. I was surprised at the storyline. I was like, it was like watching a movie that you're typing out, and that was just a phenomenal part of the process. That was just, didn't expect that, unexpected.
Awesome. Yeah, it's everyone goes through such a unique journey with the writing process in this, and it's we have our highs and lows, of course, though. But when was it in this 8.5 time frame that you finished the very first draft? You had it all done with the initial writing phase, which is actually, in my opinion, the hardest part, because in my local writers group with a couple of other friends of mine, we have our motto is spew now, edit later. Just get it on paper. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can be sloppy, messy, chaotic. Just get it on paper, because you can always fix it. You can't edit nothing, but you can edit something. And if it's something, go for it.
Exactly. Well said. Erica Mailman was one of my instructors. She ended up being one of my editors, and she said, just write. She just even if it doesn't seem any good, you just write it. So I love what you're saying. And that gave such freedom and took off that fear and critique of your own self to get the stuff on paper. So to be honest, in 6 months, I had the main frame. I had the bulk of the book in 6 months, but it was in those other 8 years. Sometimes I didn't do a whole lot with it other than in my head maybe, but there was definitely the refining. I might have added a few more stories. So, to say when my very first I kept saying, this is my final draft. I can't tell you how many final drafts I had. And then this is my final edit. I can't tell you how many final edits that I had. So, I know there was a real bulk of it done, and I felt very good about it in 6 months, but it was during the rest of those 8 years that it was refined. I kept, handing it out to people who were interested in reading it, getting their feedback, sending it out to other editors or other people. And so I really don't know when I'd say my real final or my real bulk was, other than that the main ideas were there, but new stories, a couple new things. So yeah, that's a great point. I don't know.
Yeah, one of my favorite authors, Neil Gaiman, he described novels as imperfect prose that undergoes continuous improvement. And
Nice.
he even, looks at his own novels that he's published over the years and is like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's still flawed. There's still things I could do. But there does come a point in time when you've revised it enough times and then it's ready to go on the market. And that's what happened this year with 2020, despite the pandemic and other things going on. So for those out there who are aspiring writers, kind of having the feel of, okay, this is it. When did you get that moment with Miss Snickers?
It, I think I would have to say this year. I had a goal, but I've had a goal for a long time that I just kind of, I do remember because it was really hard to let go of, I think, for me, because I feel like I could continue to see where I could improve it to, whether that was grammar or that was spelling or that was an idea. And there was finally a point, and I don't know if there's a point where you get tired enough of it or whatever, but I did enjoy going over and over it. But there was finally a point where, okay, you need to let it go. It's not going to be perfect. Maybe that was the revelation that it's.
That's a great way going forward, especially for aspiring writers out there like myself. It's just all part of the learning experience.
Yes, that is great advice.
Yes. So, all right, let's get into the book a little bit. I don't want to reveal too much out there because people do need to read this for themselves and enjoy these characters who are just fun. And there's some moments in there. There are a lot of laugh out loud moments out there, everyone. So especially if you're looking for a book that's just makes you feel good, you don't want a lot of stress or anxiety when reading, especially with everything ongoing in the year 2020, about to turn to 2021. Miss Snickers is a lighthearted read that affords the readers just some fun laugh out loud moments. And you also see some courage here, character development here, and some really good life lessons to take away. With that, I want to hear about Miss Sydney Murphy is her real name, aka Miss Snickers. Describe her in your own words, because you've known this character now for 8.5 years. You've known this person inside and out as your main character. So tell us about her. What are, everything from the way her mind works to her goals and dreams and everything in this journey.
Okay. Well, she is a friendly person, and she takes the world kind of that way. I think she kind of sees the world as, what's the word? She's just open to the world, more vulnerable then, because she isn't, like hardened or, like all real harsh about things, but because she's just gone through some hard times, she's a little bit in the beginning more at a point of transition where she's starting to evaluate, where has she been, where's she at, and going forward from that. And I think in that made some learning experiences for her to see herself and the world around her. But I think she's, I almost want to ask you the same question. When you read about her, what did you observe? It's almost maybe easier to observe her through almost another person, if you don't mind saying.
Yeah, because I know authors have their own points of view than the readers too. So for me, my impression of her was, of course, I will mention it because the preview of the first chapter is out there on platforms such as Amazon for people to read. Sydney starts off the book going through a major life change. I mean, she leaves her fiance and moves in with her Aunt Josie across the state. That is a huge, huge, huge life change. Going to that. So there's vulnerabilities there, and I've noticed in the beginning she was more kind of nervous and excitable in a way, and but she kind of takes the bull by the horns. She gets a substitute teaching job to bring in some money. She reconnects with old friends and even tries into new experiences that she never thought she would get involved with. I'm not going to give away anything, hint, hint, you got to read the book. So she goes through a transformation, and I think she develops more confidence in her ability, especially with relationships such as friendships, familial ties, and also romantic ties too. So her growth in this book with these fun experiences, with these quirky characters that are very lovable and relatable, she goes through a transformation process. And that in itself, I think, is the most important feel-good part too, because it's relatable. A lot of people, myself included, have gone through sudden life changes, one way or another, regardless of if it's a end of a relationship or a loss of a job or some big significant change that just impacts your life top to bottom. And she's done it, but she did it with a good attitude. She wasn't perfect in her transition, but she had the right attitude of, you know what, I've got the gumption to do this and I'm just going to do it. I'm going to have my best life and this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, yes. And I even found it interesting as it went along that she started to discover why she had such a strange and such an ending. She unpacks that, and in doing so I think she even learns more about herself and maybe puts some of those pieces together that kind of were the precipitating events to her leaving. And so it's interesting that over time she comes to understand more of that.
Yes, and her story is a great example of just because something comes to an end doesn't mean it's the end. Endings are also beginnings.
Exactly.
Yes.
Good said. Good, well said.
Yes. So my next question is, as writers, we do draw upon influences, whether real life experiences or even other works of fictions that inspired us. Who are some authors that inspired you in your journey of writing Miss Snickers and revising it and going through your own self journey?
I have enjoyed, whether it's a movie or a television show or a book, where you can hear the main character thinking and going through their life. So, even like what's the Shoot Your Eye Out Christmas Story we're going to see a ton of, and you have all these things going on. Or way back the Wonder Years, and they had like, like you could hear, and like there's numerous movies where it's the main character, but you can hear the inside and you see the outside going on at the same time. I've
Yeah, it's
always
like
enjoyed
that internal dialogue, yes.
Yeah. So that first person present tense, I love that. I think that's a lot of fun. And as for authors, I enjoy Carl Hansen and his Florida swamp stuff and all the books that he talks about in Florida. And he's got a funny twist on different things. So he's been an enjoyable reader for like a humorous fiction kind of story. And then inspirationally, I love Max Lucado. I just think he speaks to the heart. And really, I think I wanted a book that had both. I wanted a book that had speaking to the heart. There's a depth to this character, or at least what can really happen as we really have to sit with ourselves in different situations and grow from that and learn our little nuggets. And I also wanted this fun, this is just somehow these are fun things that are happening, and kind of put those two together, the inspiration and the joy really is what I was looking for in this book.
Yes. And for me, probably the most important inspiration I gleaned from it, from my own experience reading this, is have the courage to do things in life that you want, that you know are good for yourself. Have courage to make change. Change is not always bad. It can be intimidating and scary, but things have a way of working out.
Yeah. Yes. And she found people to help the change process happen with, people she felt safe with and comfortable with. And like Aunt Josie's kind of just dropping these pearls of wisdom every now and again, but she's definitely a hoot. So it's not, it's not like a snore fest with her or anything, but just finding what you need to help give you maybe the guardrails or the strength to make some of those changes. I think that's a really great point, Derek. Thank you.
Yeah, Josie very much was a rock for Sydney, especially in her early days post breakup.
Right. Yeah.
There are some very tender moments between aunt and niece there where, she leans on, Josie's wisdom and comes to her with, feelings of doubts and some anxiety about the past and uncertainty for the future.
Right.
We've all been there.
Exactly. Yes.
So then, what are some of your favorite moments that you especially had the most fun writing in this process with Miss Snickers? And feel free to, if it's something that reveals too much of the plot, you can be as general as you want to. We certainly don't want to give away too much.
Right.
Hint, hint, people read the book. Hint, hint.
Well, my girlfriend who read the book, she said, "Oh my gosh!" She said she went between laughing and sometimes tense because there are suspenseful times when you're like, "What is going to happen next?" So I almost feel like I can't say that the because it tells too much of the plot, but there's these very suspenseful moments when you're like, "What is going to happen?" And that was fun to write and to see it unfold. But like one of my favorite lines in particular is when I think she called him a 4-foot boy with a 6-foot attitude, and he says, you know, you a sub, and you are a sub or whatever, and I said it, and then she said, "Yes, I'm Miss Murphy. Are you a student?" And he says, "Not today."
I'm your
Walks
worst
off.
nightmare. Yeah,
Right. So
yeah.
some of that was fun. And I've been in education for a long time. I've taught in low
Yes.
grades all the way through. So to get a feel for each grade level, it just seemed to be natural. I didn't feel like I had to work real hard to just picture a sixth grader or a high schooler or, you know. And so those little characters that came up along the way, um, like I said, it was like watching a movie. They were kind of a treat for me too, because I didn't sit down and go, "Oh, who am I going to have her meet?" It just seemed to unfold that there's this little kid right in front of me, like the kindergartner who probably could have subbed for the class that day, you know. And so some of those were really.
With Miss Snickers now having been written and it's out there, do you have any plans? Do you think would you be interested in writing another book or continuing on Sydney's journey?
Absolutely. And the next book is called Punch Girl. And once you read the story, you'll see maybe more why. But at the end of the book, there's just a little bit of what I call, or someone called white space, which you have the main story, and then a little trek of time was put forward. But that in between time, I want to do a book, a Punch Girl, that fills in the space. So you'll see actually a little more romance, a little more mystery, and a little more adventure, which will take the parts that were just not quite because you missed, you know, the time travel. You know, you go ahead a little bit, and so that's going to develop more in certain relationships. And because of what happened in this first book, there's consequences sometimes to those things that happened in this first book that will bleed over into the second book that can still be exciting and adventurous, along with these great characters to continue to watch them, what happens in their lives. So yeah, absolutely. I'm hoping
That's
for this year,
wonderful.
this 2021, that's kind of the goal, to have Punch Girl come out hopefully within 2021. That'd be great.
That's fantastic. So, my last question then would be, based on your own personal experience and your growth as a writer, what would be maybe the top points of advice, or if there was one thing you could say to all the writers out there who are aspiring with their own creative works that they have put so much time into, for those of us out there who are writing and hope to someday be published, what's the best advice you can give for people like us?
I would have to say, I don't know if this is, I want to say it's probably better than you might think it is. Maybe, I don't know. I think we can be really self-critical, and it can be
Yes.
really, hard to fill that page in, that white page, and you've got so many ideas, and you've got to love, kind of like let it just start flowing and see what happens from it. But I've even told myself, look at how many different flavors of ice cream there are. Mine is not going to be everyone's flavor, and I know that. And it's like, oh, I wish it were. Why wouldn't you want it to be? But um, but there's people out there that want what you have to offer, and you're probably better than you might even realize that you're doing already. And so I guess taking out that critical voice and
Mhm.
finding, like, it really helped me to have somebody read it, and sometimes it didn't even matter much if they got back with me, even though I wanted them to get back with me. It was more about someone was continuing to help me go forward in this process, and that So finding a friend, finding someone to walk with you for a while. And you know what? In 8.5 years, I can, there's people I don't even, haven't talked to in about 8 years, who one of the first ones to encourage me to keep going. You know, and I haven't hardly seen her or whatever, but I'm just like, she's so valuable to me in this process. I don't know. What are you hearing that, Derek?
I'm hearing that just keep going, keep writing. Don't let your inner voice be a saboteur to stop you from writing.
Yeah.
And I think coupled with the spew now, edit later, it doesn't have to be perfect because you can always edit what you've got typed or handwritten. And so
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic advice. And having a support system too, that's very important.
Yes. We need our cheerleaders, and we need, and then, like, I don't know, it's just, do you relate to that feeling of, I don't know, the feeling of, is it work, does someone want to read this, or that feeling of, is it good enough? And sometimes people would say back something that they thought was so, like, they love that part. And I'm like, oh, great, that's awesome. It feels really good to be part of that process. And they seem to feel good about it too. So that's even extra.
Yes. That's wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful. And that's all the questions I have for today. So, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Snickers is available now. You can order it through your bookstore. It is also available on Amazon. You can get it via soft copy. You can get a hard copy. You can even get it for ebooks if you wish. And I understand you're doing the Audible version soon.
Yes, that is the plan, to have that out hopefully in early 2021. So
Fantastic.
My understanding is over quite a lot of books. I mean, I want to say around half are audio. I mean, people are listening when they can't sit down to read. And so I really want to be part of that group of people who can't, don't have the time to sit down to read, but can listen on their way to work, and then whatever. So yeah, that would be fun.
That's wonderful.
Thanks, Derek.
Thank you so much, and congratulations again. Miss Snickers out now. Get your copy today.
Thank you, Derek. It's been great seeing you and talking to you about it. You're a blast.
Thank you so much.
All right. See you later.